Hello, everyone. I'm happy today to discuss with Dr. Ibraheem Alkhawaldeh a very important topic. He's an expert researcher, and he would like to teach us about the manufacturer and user facility device experience database. And he will share with us his experience with this database as he published many papers about it. Dr. Ibrahim, I'm very happy to have you today, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome, Dr. Hashem. As you know, we are familiar. We worked together on it before. Uh, as Our presentation will be entitled first about how to do we do auditing, how we do research papers in this database, how we can do quality improvement projects at the end of the day. Uncovering device adverse events to improve safety for patients and personnel is our title, and we can start. So first, there comes, as you know, Dr. Hashim, there comes a question to every one of us after every device being approved. What's, let's say, next? Post-market surveillance. What I do need to know about it from, let's say, broader adverse events outside the clinical trials. If I was, let's say, experiencing problems in my department, how I can deal with it, how I can report it to the FDA, and so on. So our first bottom line is there is not enough let's say, there is not enough transparency about problems with the medical devices, because all of the time, let's say, frontline personnel often get blamed because of the problems, but no one takes action. And if they want to take action, let's say, they don't know how. So we are here to close this gap. When something happens, let's say, how you can deal with it so we can reach the shore, so we can be safe. It's not like at first just the right, let's say, for the patient. It's also to protect ourselves legally. So patients and personnel get harmed. It's easier to make decisions when we have, let's say, a good eyes and a clear view of everything that's happening. And if something happens with us, let's say, it's not always we are the only ones that it happens to them. It's usually happening at an let's say, larger scale, as we will say later, Dr. Hashim, and we'll show an example that you and me did earlier, like a year ago. So first, our webinar will cover, let's say, multiple stuff. We will explain the purpose and the value of the MAUDE database, and we will conduct searches, interpret search results, and submit reports. And we'll show how to submit reports to the FDA, and we'll understand the implications of everything that we'll learn along the way. So our building blocks will be 7 building blocks. First, we'll talk about the background on FDA MAUDE database, how to conduct searches, how to let's say, maximize your value from the search. We will see multiple issues on how you can deal with them, and we will talk about our experience, and then we'll talk about how we will submit an adverse event to the FDA if you want to submit. And for the second part, we will talk about auditing, and we will talk about research papers and key takeaways and recommendations, all in its time. So first, these are let's say, the example that we will have along the way, so we can become familiar with them. I'll put them at first. So what is, let's say, yearly, the FDA gets thousands, several hundred thousand, let's say, medical device reports, gets filed. How the FDA deals with them? They receive deaths, serious injuries, device malfunction. This database and the medical device reports are one way that the FDA monitors the post-marketing surveillance. So then the FDA can use it to monitor device performance, to detect potential safety issues, and to support risk-benefit evaluations, especially in the early stages, because not all the time we have, as we said, open eyes and open judgment. So we can have more, let's say, fair judgment about the newly approved devices and what adverse event that happened along the way. So, according to the definitions, what is considered a serious injury and what is considered a malfunction? A serious injury is defined as a life-threatening that causes irreversible damage or requires medical intervention. For malfunction, if a device didn't perform well as intended, or essential functions were prevented, or death or serious injuries could occur. That when that happens, I could consider it a malfunction. So there comes a question that is it just, let's say, a patient right to report or to know all of the information that we are talking about? No, it's legally from the FDA. If you are in charge, that you report what happens with you, especially in the early stages. If the reporter is a manufacturer and the adverse event is a death and or serious injuries, malfunction, they should report it within 30 days to the FDA. And if an event that requires remedial action to prevent unreasonable risk or substantial harm, it should be reported within 5 days. And if you are an importer, you should report it to the FDA and manufacturer within 30 days. And if you are a device user facility, which is wherever the device is used and you are, let's say, the face of it or you are the contractor of it, you should report it within 10 days. If it's a death or serious injury to the FDA and manufacturer, if it's death or serious injury to the manufacturer within also 10 days. So usually there's like, as I said, there is a legal obligation, not just, let's say, rightful obligation. So if it's a criminal, if you, let's say, fail to report an adverse offense, what happens? If it's a criminal court and they said, if the first offense you should pay and there is a 1 year imprisonment. If it's a second offense, there is a $10,000 fine and 3 years imprisonment. And civil penalties could, if it was a civil court, it will take for you like 15,000 per violation and up to 1 million. So we're talking about serious stuff, not something that you just know to know. You should adhere and you should, let's say, know this stuff to protect yourself. So our first critical insight is that it's not just the right thing to do for the patients, it's legal obligation, and your institution can get into a lot of trouble if they don't do it. And let's say you need your institution to stay updated and to get all the latest device, so you know, so you need to pay attention to keep all the, let's say, uh, all the obligations legal and right. So there is other side, which is voluntary reporting. It's there is no obligation about it. The FDA encourages it for health professionals, patients, caregivers, and consumers. And if something unexpected happens, device quality problems, product use errors, and treatment failures, all of it, let's say, are encouraged to be reported because we need timely reporting, especially if the patients are willing to report it. And we'll see examples of how the patients themselves can report. So we can take an urgent action, prompt action as soon as possible. So what is the MAUDE database? It is a database created in 1991. It archives medical device reports submitted by mandatory and voluntary reporters. It's searchable up to 10 years, and it is intended for post-market surveillance and promoting patient safety. So this is like to become familiar with it, this is like our first example of a medical device report from the MAUDE database. As you can see, there is an ARCB scope with a disposable distal cap, and there was an injury. And as you can see there, let's say gastroscope was used, and there was a lot of damage to the esophagus, hospitalized for 2 days. I just put it so we can become familiar with it, as we will explain in the later slides. So let's get into the database itself, the searches that we can do on, and first there are two types of searches in the database. You can search in simple search or an advanced search. So the simple search, if there's a keyword in any type of report or any type of all the information included, it will retrieve it and you can choose the years and the records per page. But if you want to be, let's say, accurate and retrieve the things you want, you need to use the advanced search, and the advanced search has a lot of, let's say, indexed problem. Every device is indexed in a code, as you can see here, the product code, and the report itself. Every report has a number. You can retrieve it from, you can write it and retrieve it from here. You can write the manufacturer name, the event type. The event type is, let's say, injury or malfunction, or let's say the stuff that we talked about a minute ago. The product class, they are grouped. You can talk about endoscopes as a whole or something as a whole, and you can then break it down by choosing something in it. And the brand name, as you know, and we can add, as I mentioned earlier, there's a let's say 10 years period you can search from. Okay. Everything else before is you can find it in a, let's say they archive it in another site and you can find it, but you can't, let's say there isn't much use for it. So you can select the period you want to search on, as you can see, from to. And then the product problem, they give you a list and you can, let's say, choose from. So as you can see here, we choose Ethicon, Stabler Surgical, and so on. We choose the period, and so on. So there comes a question to your mind, how I can know, let's say, the details of the device that I'm searching, especially the code, because the code is, let's say, the key to everything else that you need. For you to find the code, there will be on the right a device classification, and you can click on it. When you click on it, it gives you this page, and this page you need, let's say, to fill anything you know about the device here. Usually, what we do is that we go to the where written device and we write anything that, let's say, the device name or any part of it, so it can give me all of the devices that contain this, let's say, word in it. Okay, so for our example, let's say I wrote stapler. These are the, let's say, the results that come. Septal stapler, surgical stapler. I can click on it, okay, and I can, let's say, read the definition and description. And if it matches my, let's say, if it matches my goal or my device, I take this code and I go and put it, as we said, in this, yeah, in this space. So if I, let's say I've gone there and I put the code and I search. The results can come in two ways. This is the first way that it comes. It comes in, let's say, in a list, or you can choose how many results in a page can come up to you. It's up to 50, I think, or 200. And you can see here the number of reports and the period and the product code you chose. The other way is we're gonna talk about, especially it's good for research wise, it's the Excel sheet. Okay, you can import it to an Excel sheet and it will give you all the parts of the report that we're gonna discuss in a bit. And you can use it to clean, to search, you can control, you can find a specific stuff in it, and it's easier to read as we will talk about. So we're gonna now talk about the components of the medical device report because it's the main thing that we're gonna, let's say, deal with. And firstly, here is the whole report. Okay, now we're gonna take it part as part and a part. For our first components, the categorical information. As I said, every adverse event you're gonna put has a code, has an indexation to retrieve it. Every device has also indexed. So as you can see here, these are the components of the medical or the categorical information that usually put first. The brake has a code this, and the and the perforation has a code this. Because when you, especially when you write papers or you want to unify what you found, okay, and you want to convince the peer reviewer, you have to put a list, as we will show later, with how the FDA defines perforation and how the FDA also somehow defines break itself toward itself. So you can be accurate. For our next component is the event description. It is the scenario that let's say the event or the adverse event has happened from A to Z. And then usually what happens is that there is an investigation. As we said, after we report, they investigate and they give you the other narrative that was the result of the investigation itself. Here we have the physician or the reporter narrative. So, as I said in the first, everything should be clear and we have an open judgment. This way we can have an open judgment reading both sides. Here's the manufacturer narrative, the investigation, the what was after revision, what was the everything that happened. As you can see, they mention everything. They mention that, especially you can also from this there will also be a recommendation or something as we will discuss from it. That what was the follow-up of it. Okay, next we have the report number. As I said, if you want to report a specific report, you need to use these. There's a brand name, the type of device, all the manufacturer information, and all of it. Next, we have the reporter country and the device specific, as we know, and the reporter specifics. The report date, the source, and all of it. We usually use these as descriptives because you can do a trend, okay? And you found a specific country that had a high prevalence, or not, let's say a high prevalence, or let's just say a high number of reports that are recorded from a specific country. So there's something happening there other than the, let's say, the other countries. So I have to investigate this specific country for what's happening. Also, the year. You can, let's say, see that the year is specific year has a large number of reports. What happened there, and how I can know what happened there, why, and I can investigate all the reasons that in this specific year this happened. Okay. Next, we have the device specifics, the operator. Usually, there you can know if the device was returned, was available for evaluation, the device was returned or not, and if it was usable or reusable just once or more than one time, because you know it's something related to can be related to the, let's say, the failure. سامعني دوك؟
Dr. Ibrahim, it seems that you lost the connection.
I I returned it back. Is the recording still on?
Yeah. Can you start sharing the screen?
Yes, I shared it. Is it visible to you, Doctor?
Yeah, yeah. I can see it
Hmm.
now.
Let
You
me share
can
it.
start. The stage is yours.
Okay. Let's continue. Sorry for the let's say the discontinuation of the recording. So if you use the right tools, you can find hidden treasures, and we show the examples, and you can have, let's say, a good investigation that involves everything that you encounter. So let's say how can I maximize now my search? How I can retain all the data I want? How I can find what I need? How I can clean the reports that I don't need? How I can put an inclusion of what I want? All of it. So the first thing that I need to consider is, am I searching for a specific thing or specific report, or am I doing a study on the database? So I need single reports or multiple reports. It differs based on what I need or what my goal is. I ask myself first, has this happened before? What I can expect. Then I collect all the device, let's say, details from their official website or official page. I can find the important dates, when it was, let's say, approved, and the keywords related to it. I remember the first paper we worked on, me and Dr. Hashim, we worked on Faricimab, and Faricimab wasn't mentioned in the database. It was mentioned under the name Vabismo, the other name. So we had to find every keyword related to that specific drug, so we can find all the results. So it's important that you find all the keywords related to the device itself. So for our first example, as let's say, how I can maximize my search is if I want, I ask myself first, is there any events related to the robotics, let's say, surgical system? I I have a robotic surgical system. There was a broken cable. I want to know what was the consequence of that broken cable that happened with me. So I have in the institution, the manufacturer Intuitive, the brand name is DaVinci XI. I found the product code and I choose my period. Then comes my results. We have 293 results, records that I can search from. So I want the broken cable that I mentioned, how I can find it. Let's say we go to the Excel, it's better. We downloaded the reports. We can, let's say, view individual reports. We can search for by reading manually. Like usually you can read better if you swipe this, let's say, to swipe it below, so you can read freely. You don't have that narrow space, and you can then you use the control and find, control F, so you can find specific word from all the reports. This usually we use it a lot, and it was, let's say, game changer. You can search a specific word, and in all the reports you can find what you want. Especially we're here written a broken cable. You can see that there is two results, and here is one results that a broken cable. The event type was death, and all the stuff you need. Let's say that you want to show your department your result that you found here. You can save, let's say, this report, and you can come back to it later. And as you can see, we took the report number here. You can then you save and label with all the key information that you found in this, let's say, report. So you should, my first advice for everyone using this database is you have to be systemic. You don't have to be random or haphazard. You have to be systemic if with every step you take, especially if you save your files, save all your files in the same, let's say, system that you had. Here, you can see that every, let's say, report have a specific order. The report number, all let's say, this specific order about the information and the consequence of the report are saved for every report. Especially if you are next dealing with an Excel sheet, dealing with all the, not just an Excel sheet, the files of the paper itself. Okay. With this system, you can find, let's say, you can conduct stuff, and you can, let's say, you don't miss anything, and so on. So here you can save the report, and you can do a presentation on it, you can use it, and so on. Our first technical issue so you can maximize your, let's say, result search is if you don't retain any results, what you can do. First, you need to expand the date range then you have to be, let's say, to make your search as broader as possible, removing specific from query, brand name, and event type. You can remove. You can try different variations of the manufacturer. I remember we encountered this using the manufacturer Roche, or they call it Roche. Everyone spells it like in different, capitalized and capitalized. So you need to use different variation of the manufacturer name. And you need to to check the spelling errors so you can eventually find what you look for. So the next technical issue is that you retain too many results. We, we there is an important factor with this database. It only gives you back every query of 500 records. You can't have more. Let's assume that you have, let's say, 1,000, 2,000. How you can deal with it? Here in our example is we have a bronchoscope, flexible or rigid, and the date range is 2 years. As you can see, there is more, but we stuck on the 500 records. What you can do here is that you need to perform multiple searches and you need to narrow your range, let's say date ranges, and you need to download it in an Excel sheet. Then you need to combine it and merge it into one Excel sheet. Okay. So if you divide our example to these periods, you can see that we have, let's say, more than 500, and we ended up when combining them with approximately 1,000. This should change the way that you deal with database. You have to take a close look on how many results you retain every time. Next, if you have an empty report or you have, let's say, something that you can read, you need, most of the time, you need to go check under the device instruction for use of the website of the similar stuff that happens here. You can say that in fact an infection happened and an injury. So, but the report is empty. So you need to check and search for the same stuff on YouTube videos, websites, journal articles, especially if someone has published something recently, media reports and other government reports. What I usually do, I read, let's say, I subscribe uh, to the best, let's say, related YouTube channels, especially, and to the weekly news, especially neurology or ophthalmology. They give you the device list every while, and then they send you to your email. So when you watch videos or you check in your emails that from this specific official site, you can see everything that's happening, like with the latest news. Like I follow a page, I think it's named Neuro News. Neuro News publish everything happening in the field, and you can see everything with, let's say, the latest dates. If you see a redacted information, you can search for it. As you can see, B6 here and B4. They usually put it, but you don't know the meaning of it, so you can go and check. It's usually mean something that is protected or something that's confidential. So you don't have to panic. You just need to know the meaning of the stuff. So somehow our next critical insight, as we can see, if something happening, it's not probably alone. You have to pay. You have to go ask. You have to go search. You need to do your homework so you can refine your search and find related stuff. Usually, you are not let's say, the only one experiencing this. It's usually the tip of the iceberg, as you can say. So next, we need to discuss how you can submit an adverse event to the FDA. There is an online, mail, fax, phone. It is, let's say, uh, everything is put in the resource page. The usual ones are online and mail. Most of the time the others are on the, let's say, view the phone. For online, there is a form for the manufacturers. There is a form for the voluntary reporting of the professionals, and there is a form for, let's say, consumers and patients. And they differ with the, let's say, the content and what they include in it. So first, everything you saw in the report is not required from you to report all at once. First, you have to give some basic information. Then, with the follow-up, you can give all the other, let's say, if it's of interest and they want you to give more results or more information, more investigation that you had did, they will follow up with you. First, you need there's a required information and there is an additional information. That's just the adverse event, the suspected device or product, reporter information, patient information, product availability, and so on. Other products or device involved, you need to put. As you can see, not as all the details we saw in the report. Then, when they follow up, you can give all the other, let's say, details they need. There is this website. It's called from the FDA. There's a training available that you can practice on it, how to fill and submit. There are practicing cases and you can fill it. They give you a case and you fill it. It's called Mid-Watch Learn. There's some one for health professional and the one for a consumer patient. You can go to and you can try. Here you can see an example from it. You can practice submitting a report online and you can fill it. Here is the other one for voluntary reporting online. You can use it. Here is the online, let's say, form that you can use it to report online with it. Or you can fill it, let's say, with a hard copy and or an electronic copy and send it by mail or by fax. And as you can see, here is the form, the first form, the form 350, 3050 and the 3050B for the voluntary consumer and patient reporting. And here the mandatory reporting form 3050A. As you can see, it includes a lot of, let's say, details in it. Here, as you can see, the reporter source, contact information, all of it, because it's a mandatory and requires more, let's say, accurate information in it. How after you start the process, you need to keep everything with you for 2 years. The event details, copies of submission, and follow-up communication. It's the period that you are required to keep everything and copies of everything that in front of you for 2 years. So I submitted a medical device report. What happens then? Now what? Confirmation email. Then if they want to request more information, you upload it to the database. Then there is a safety evaluator review compared to the database, may investigate or forward to the manufacturer. If they would do it. So, as we said, the report that appear in the database may just be the tip of the iceberg, and each of us can make a difference by bringing medical device reports to the attention of the key decision makers and submitting reports when somebody gets exposed to a risk or is harmed by a device. I mean, usually you're not the only one experiencing something. Just put that in mind. So we get into the case studies and let's say, we will discuss how auditing works and the key, let's say, cases that happened, publications and auditing and the quality improvement projects that in the same department. Doctor, we can, because there's like 5 minutes left, we can stop here and make another, let's say, meeting. What do you think?
Okay.
For the example, so they can be. So, so we now get to the next part. We discuss the case studies and we discuss the three major stuff that I mentioned: auditing, research, let's say WISE, and the workflow and the case studies. So first, let's say you want to investigate flexible endoscopes. The first thing you need to know that the use of endoscopes all around the body. Where is your endoscope comes when you talk about endoscopes. Let's say, as you can see, here is all the use of the endoscopes around the body. Then you need to be familiar with what usually goes wrong with the device you are using. So, what's happening with you is a common problem or something that new or unusual. So then, as you can see here, here's what goes wrong with endoscopes and reprocessing failures. As you can see, patient infection, exposures, and injuries, and so on, and with examples with it. Next, you need to start, let's say, with a narrow spectrum, narrowing the spectrum as you go on. Let's say you started reading about contamination and damage in ureteroscopes. You were using ureteroscopes and you started to see contamination and damage. This was, let's say, something that was detected in two hospitals uh, in a new paper, and you read this another, let's say, damage that's happening with this case report, retained digital flexible ureteroscope, and you started and you wanted to know uh, what's happening with specific ureteroscope. So you ask yourself, did the FDA know about the problems with reusable ureteroscopes? As you can see after the search, there is 130 records, and as you can see, they are, let's say, close with the date itself. And then you start see what's the consequence of the damaged and reusable endoscopes by reading the reports. As you can see here, here is an injury from a damaged endoscope that got stuck in the ureter. Several doctors tried to remove it, cut off the distal end. Second surgery was needed. Third-party refurbished cystoscope, let's say, 4 times. And as you can see, here is the model number, and you are investigating it. Next, you can see as eventually this specific ureteroscope had to be recalled due to multiple events, and it was attributed to the same, let's say, reason that was mentioned in the report itself. As you can see here, they recalled all the stuff involved in all the devices involved in this brand name. It was attributed to complaints about the breakage of insertion during surgery. In one case, it's stuck in the patient, caused tissue trauma, requires surgical removal, and it's all there. So as you can see, the recall and the FDA were on the same page with the reports that we showed and the results that we had. Next, let's say that you are using an ultrasound probes. As you can see, the same. You know where is the endoscope used everywhere in the body. What is the use of it? You study it. You start gathering information. You you say you know the usual stuff or the common problems that happen with it. And in our case, you wanted to investigate the transesophageal echogram, and the problem was contamination, probe contamination and infection. This photo is from the presentation of Ofsted and Associate, all the copyrights from them as we will put later. They are from the Healthcare Processing Association, Sterile Processing Association. You can, we want to thank them. It's their content at the end of the day, and it's the only content, let's say, that we could use. And as you can see, there's some contamination, and you want to know what happened after the contamination. Is there any related reports? Are they in the database and so on? So you find the product classification code for probes. First, you select injury. You wanted to know what injuries happened from this contamination and the problems with the TE probes. You expand the data range, review findings. Mostly they are not TE. You add a manufacturer that it is the manufacturer you use, and you can see there is the results, and we can scroll through the results, and our results, and you can see there is infections linked to contaminated and damaged TE probes. In this report, there is an increased enterobacter erogens infection after heart surgery. The TE probe implicated lab detected bacteria. GE confirmed proper cleaning and disinfection, enhanced disinfection methods failed, and the biofilm suspected. And they are following up on it. Our next problem is electrical arcing. As you know, it can happen in surgeries and it can lead to potential pa- patient shocks or burns. The electricity can leak through cracked or punctured insulation, as you can see. So I asked myself, here's an example that, let's say, happened. There is damage with insulation, and the instrument shows the damage itself, and you can see the arcing from the cutlery tool and the second photo here. And I can go on with my investigation. So here is laparoscopic marrow dissector. As you can see, the insulation is damaged and there's contamination. And has the FDA received the reports of electrical arcing and burns? So the answer is yes. And in this report, after research, there is an electrical arcing caused bowel perforation, and 12 devices had electrical current leakage, significant wear and tear damage was found. The manufacturer recommended after that all users should perform a visual and functional inspection with every use, and they provided the kit or tool for it, as we will see in a bit. Here is another consequence or injury that happened. Patient burned from laparoscopic instrument. And later, after this happened, let's say studies have appeared, and one study they found 90% of reusable laparoscopic instrument had insulation failures. And here is the insulation testing and visual inspection to, let's say, tools, as you can see, that needed to be used for every laparoscope after this incident starting to happen. As you can see, for our next, this example is finished. For our next example is the pieces of broken laparoscopy instrument left in patient. You started to, let's say, from this laparoscopy, you started to inspect, to investigate. Uh, they retrieved the one piece, trocar sleeve broke and fell into the patient. Second piece left inside the patient. You started to check. This study came, and there is let's say surgical robots. There is 144 deaths and more than 1,000 injuries over the span of 14 years. So when you see, you start checking other reports. Patient passed for an object after robotic surgery, and the let's say the surgeon did not believe the metal come from the surgery, and the patient says it was after Da Vinci supported prostatectomy, retrieved metallic fragment from a toilet, and so on. Here is another problem: broken and frayed cables. They start to investigate more and missing components. And then they start finding that the surgical stapler failed, and there was problems with firing it. The stapler failed with reloads, caused delayed, malformed stapler had to be retrieved, and manual sutures needed in this patient. So next, for the stapler itself, they were recalled. The ethical recalls surgical staplers, and as you can see, the reason matches the reports, which was insufficient firing, a failure to completely form staples, and it was, I'd say, when as we could have, let's say, found this earlier, but we were late in the stage. As you can see, it was already 92,000 devices recalled in the US. The number is huge. We could have, let's say, avoided it if we like made an action and reported earlier and all of the other stuff, and the investigation were better. That shows you the responsibility that you have as a physician, that you need to report as early as possible because it can lead to to the point of no return, as you can say. The loss is huge, could be, as you can see in this example. Here is let's say, the reasons for the recall, like, as they mention here, insufficient firing, and again, and you can, here we search for the medical device reports related to the recall, with the manufacturer Ethicon, you can see that there were a number of reports aging back 2 years before the recall has happened, and we could have somehow avoided it. And it's a good example of why you should hold responsibility and you should take it seriously at any point when you deal with these devices. Here you can see the reports had the same reason of recall, did not fire, returned piece was returned. As you can see, here is another, let's say, report. As you can see, after each misfiring, was not holding, the same stapler. So, learning about the nature and severity of problems with medical device may empower you to develop more solutions that can actually fix it earlier than possible. So, we get to the next point, and I need to thank the HSPA Healthcare Sterile Processing Association for their content, and now we get to our content. And our content, our first encounter, we needed to, let's say, to test it on it was the faricimab. As Dr. Hashim knows, the earlier versions or the previous injections had a problem with endophthalmitis and some because there was the needle itself, it contained the and silicone was getting into the eye of the patient. So me and Dr. Hashim were talking, and we decided to look for the new generation faricimab, which was recently, let's say, approved. There was only one paper talking about a recent adverse event in JAMA about endophthalmitis, and they were after faricimab, and they were investigating it. So we asked ourselves the usual question, as we showed earlier, what could we do, and is there any other reports? Because as we said, if you are experiencing something, mostly you are not the only one experiencing. So I
Just Dr. Ibrahim, let me to clarify some point you mentioned. The first version you meaning is the another injection, which is prolucizumab, POVU. This injection, prolucizumab, has been associated with multiple post-injection issues, including intraocular inflammation, occlusive vasculitis, which can lead to permanent vision loss. So, after publishing some papers about intraocular inflammation with faricimabs, we want to understand the reason, the pathogenesis, why intraocular inflammation happens after injections, including the faricimab. Thank you so much.
so here is the paper that we did, intraocular inflammation with faricimab, and we surprisingly found around, I guess, I don't want to guess, but I remember it was around 10 reports, and the 10 reports contained some good insights about break, device malfunction, and stuff, and scenarios that happened. And we wrote like a two-page article, and the Dr. Hashim submitted it to iNature, and it was published. And as you can see in after it, the reports started to come out, and I think the people started to share their experience and their reports. I think I read one of the citations here. I think it was from it was a French report and multiple reports after it, and even Dr. Hashim. I guess I read. He did a systematic review on it, on all the adverse events of it. So it was a start of something that everyone was encouraged, and let's say uh, everyone started to share their findings, and it was a good way to know that the value of this database and the insight that can bring to the table. So I just wanted to get this mentioned. I saved it from Dr. Hashim. Doctor, let's say they said that they used their a doctor messaged them that they use our paper in their ground rounds from Weill Cornell, USA. So it is an example of the impact that your papers can have if you have just shared what your observation were and where it can lead. Thank you, Dr. Hashim, for sharing it. So for the after, let's say, what we can do for the MAU with the MAUDE research papers and how is it is structured. We started reporting other papers and other adverse events. We studied the literature and found that most of the papers that about MAUDE database have the same structure, the same, let's say, extraction sheets, the same inclusion exclusion criteria, just with the modification of, let's say, the specifics that needed to be extracted according to the device itself. For example, if you are dealing with a catheter, you can know that they use the number of passes or they use the some certain outcomes that you can find. So we started writing like the process itself as a white paper, how you can plan, study plan and scope, data extraction, how you do it. There is an Excel sheet ready that we did. I can share it with everyone with an open heart. And you can extract the information after you get the report you can analyze it for the then with the data extraction period, how you can unify the result and standardized, as we mentioned, to the code. And you next need to read every event and, let's say, accurately reflect the report in the injuries itself. You need to check it if it's accurate, and if there is more, you need to add it. If there is more than one patient in the report, you need to separate it and so on. You need to narratively review the reports and manually read, double check even text and so on. You need to classify. Let's say if you are using a catheter and the catheter have multiple models, you need to, let's say, classify the advertisement that you had for every model and for every version of it. And you can see if something as reported for a specific device is more or not. You need to see the event type, major or minor, no harm, let's say, and you need to put every definition as I will show for every stuff in the supplementary after you finish. And for the result structuring, I will show the result structuring that you need most of the time in a MAUDE paper now. And you can then use the visualization. The game most of the time is the individualization. You need to show your data in the best way possible. Okay, and you need to like do it on repeat so you can show that your data is reflects what's really happening there. Trend analysis and also on, and we'll talk about it. And during the narrative review of the, let's say, the events itself, you need to take notes so you can use it in the discussion when you write the discussion, and you can, if there is limitations, you can do limitations, and you can mention the, let's say, the scenarios that every event happened in. Like there's a paper that we did. I will mention it in a bit. I will go to it. This paper, analysis of lacrimal stents and balloon catheters complications. We used we wrote a description about every device problem, how it happened. To every surgeon that comes to his attention a similar, let's say, problem, can know how this specific, let's say, device problem happened. And this is the kind of instance that you can get from the MAUDE database itself. If there's a tube bending, how it happened, and all of it. And you can see that these are real world, let's say, experience, not something that let's say, familiar, more, not something usual that you can get, as you can see. This is something that you can do, and you can take it manually and the notes for it. Like here, you can see the stent fragmentation. What's the scenario of it? That tube breakage, how it was broke, and all of it. This one. And for the structure itself, this is like I just put this slide just to show that the kind of news that you need to subscribe and follow. They send you routine updates that this is the device guide from endovascular today that they send me all the time, that I know what is an endovascular world happens every time. and they send me like this the device guide I write, let's say for 2026, and I let's say read it and know all the insights from it and know what's the landscape of the new year, if you want to know. This one is a neurovascular catheter. There was a report on it, so we did, and the let's say the second report on it, I presented it in a conference, and it gave, let's say, the as early as possible the adverse event that could have happened. As you can see, you can check it. Here is like another technique that we use that you can check, and here that you can see are the all of them are just examples so that I can show you the structure of it. For the structure of the MAUDE paper, after you clean the Excel sheet, after you finalized every detail from the Excel sheet that I said that we developed based on the literature, on the comments of the literature reports or the literature used or modified according to the device. The first you need to know that you need to put an inclusion exclusion criteria on the flow chart. So you start with a number of reports, how many reports in the end after you apply the inclusion exclusion criteria remained with you. The most of the time I exclude the duplicates and insufficient information that I couldn't find in resource on or it was related to the other devices. Most of the time you need to do to exclude this. Next, you need to do a descriptive analysis or on all the stuff that was in the report, the age, how many report the age, sex, ethnicity, race, reporter occupation, reporter source, and all the stuff that were mentioned in the report, you put it in, let's say, in a descriptive data. Why? Because if you can see here, you can see since some pattern, like here, the US had the most reports. So when you write the discussion, you can discuss this point. Here, what happened in 2019 that had this surge in reports? This is the kind of information that you will get from describing the data most of the time. And you can do visualization for everything. The- as you can see for there, other stuff can be used too. Then you need to separate the device reports, the adverse events from the patient adverse events, and then talk how many device failures led to patients having an adverse event. Here you can see, let's say, the device problem. Here you can see the device problem. Here you can see the device problem. As you can see, we separated from the, let's say, the patient issues. You can have the same, let's say, descriptive data for the patient outcome, the patient adverse events also. Here, as I mentioned, sometimes you can have multiple device models or multiple devices that are let's say versions. So you need to find more ways to show your data, especially the heat map. The heat map is people that do bioinformatics or papers are familiar with it. That you can put the devices here. I think I cropped it somehow, but you would put the devices here and you put the adverse events here. Okay, and you can see which adverse event that had and associated with which model. This is like a better way to understand the data, like using heat maps and classification matrix. You can use it better. How did we discuss this? The scenarios, the description. I mentioned that you need to provide the definition of of reported terms and cons for patient-related problems and device-related problems. As you can go to the FDA, you can find every, let's say, something is indexed and under a code and not just the FDA code, the IMD-RF code and other codes, and you can see the definition. So the peer reviewer can know what you did or or how it's defined and how you define the data. It is really important that you provide this at the end of the day, especially the break. Now, for the, let's say, research, also I will provide, I told Dr. Hashim that we have like a white paper that we wrote for the steps that anyone that wants it, that we can provide it. And we usually, if you don't want, we currently working on something to automate the process more. I will show it. It is that it cleans the data for you faster and you can find more, let's say, automated there's two ways that you can automate the data extraction better. Here is, let's say, a tool that we provide that we developed this year, and which will be published soon, inshallah. Uh, it called MAUDE Metrics. Dr. Muhammad Maruf developed it. He is an excellent researcher. He developed it, and I known about it like recently, and I contacted him, and currently, inshallah, we'll work with him, God willing. As you can see here, you can put the product code and it retrieves all the report, and let's say uh, you just put the information and you can extract the MAUDE data, and it can give you all the stuff that the Excel sheet, like, it cuts you the process that you can get an Excel sheet, at least needs little processing, not all the processing. There is another way that's called crawling and scrapping. Crawling and scrapping, you can there's something, an add-in on this, let's say, uh, on the browser, that you put it and you teach it how to get information, and just you just give him the report links, and he will go to every report and find the information that you want, and he will extract it to an Excel sheet. And we use it in a paper, like, I think this one before, we used it in this paper. It was published, I think so. And this paper, like, it was a game changer, because most of the time you won't have like 50 or, let's say, 100 reports. You will have more reports that you will need to deal with, like 1,000, 10,000. There is a paper I saw that used 10,000. So I question myself how they do it. It's a lot of work. It's not like a team would be between them a lot of time to do it. So these ways can fasten the process for you most of the time. And it is recommended that you use, and I will give mm, the link to Dr. Hashem, so we can, let's say, anyone that wants to use it, that we can use it.
Thank you,
All
Dr. Ibrahim, for sharing this information. Put all of these and the box of the description of the YouTube video, and we'll put also, if Dr. Ibrahim allows, Dr. Ibrahim email. If anyone has a question, can directly email Dr. Ibrahim. He's an expert, and we should invest in that.
Thank you, Doctor. That's warm of you to say that. I just want to show. I think I opened the MAUDE metrics here. I can show it at the end of the slide, and for it I will share also the Excel sheet, as I said. And this one, I think I opened it here. Let me check just really quick. The MAUDE metrics here, as you can see. Here is all the. I will put the description of it, and how you can use it, and all of it. So for for this, I think, if you do you want to add anything, Dr. Hashim, about the MAUDE data, about the MAUDE papers? If you, I think you have some insights. If you have some insights, you can add it.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. Actually, the main insight for me using these databases is that you don't need a hospital data or hospital-based data. You can work online. You can work at your home at your available time. So it's a great chance for any researcher, for anyone interested in doing research, just to do it without the restrictions of being a hospital-based or office-based or patient's data. You just go to this database. It's a free online public database, and do what Dr. Ibrahim said about the workflow, how to extract the data and just analyze the data and write it. And that's it. The paper is fully done. The manuscript is ready, and just review it and then submit it. And you have now a new publication, and you have new insights about the reasons for multiple devices in our field failure, why these devices can fail, why these devices can sometimes harm patients patients, so you understand by going back to the roots of the issues and problems. So you should use it. It's free, it's public, and it's very useful. Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. If you have uh, last points to speak, let me know.
Yes, yes, we will talk about the last point. Thank you, Dr. Hashim. That was very insightful from you. I will just mention the last, let's say, the last part briefly about if you want to, let's say, the stakeholders, the managers, something to listen to you. So you want to improve the quality of the practice that you have in place. You saw some problem that needs fixing, what you can do. Here is an example, just what to do and considerations. It's from the same, I took it from the same, it was very insightful from the HSPA, the of let's say presentation. Quality improvement needs to be done somehow. You need to, when you encounter problems, to do your homework, compile available data to facilitate review, illustrate that others might have the problems too, include tables, multiple examples, share details as we will show now, invite allies and other key decision makers to meet with you, describe the problem, explain how you found the reports, and suggest the alternatives. When you suggest the alternatives of the solution, you need to consider three things: time, money, and training needed. Right. So the change can be done and the concerns by the stakeholder. Here's a model that it is used usually. It's called SPAR, situation, background, assessment, recommendation. You need to follow it if you are communicating with someone that can you and you need to check. This example here shows that the OR manager complained that blood and mucus had emerged from a patient-ready bronchoscope during a pre-procedural flush. The CS manager had recommended the scope that he sent out for repair last week because the technician had difficulty passing a brush through the channel during reprocessing. Period of service had declined to send it out due to budget limitations. Both managers are concerned about the patient safety and so on. So you go, you do your homework. Here is the bronchoscope problems that you retrieved. You found similar problems with what can happen, and you did your own homework. You searched the event text, and you go to the literature, you found the current overview guidelines of what used on this device, published literature, evidence for medical device reports, and other FDA communications. You found that the guidelines recommend this and that. As you can see, leak testing, every use, published studies found that showed that bronchoscopic processing commonly fails. Numerous infections and injuries have been linked, and you document what you found, as you can see here, as let's say in tables, or you can, like here, you can see the problems, that injuries that happened, and here the infections that happened. You prepare it in this, and you put the documentation with it. Also, you can view it and you can do it in, say, in a case study fashion, as you can see here for this report or this report. You can provide it with the documentation. Here is an example of the FDA safety communication that you need to provide with it. Like we mentioned, guidelines, safety guidelines, what is the reported guidelines, how to use, what's the recommendations. You can, as you can see, the FDA safety communication, you can provide it. The assessment, it's the investigation that your own investigation found. So after it, you can recommend safely. So you can hear there was, let's say, uh, cases are not transported within an hour, which allows sort to harden. There was, let's say here, CSSPD does not have a borescope or magnifying glass for inspection, and is not the SCS and SPD is not are not empowered to send damaged endoscope for repair. So what you, let's say, recommend is based on the investigation you made. Here, you recommend based on money, on training, or on time. You put the time, you put the money, you put the training, you put everything. When you do your research, everyone can hear from you and can take your judgment because you did it systematically. You've done your best, you've done your homework according to according to this model. Like as you can see here, send each bronchoscope out for routine maintenance every 6 months. You can see that it costs 10K capital budget, 3K annually if you want to bring magnifying glasses, borescope, and clean the verification test kits. So our last insight of the day is key decision makers may be willing to hear from you if you to your perspective and recommendation if you done your homework well and share evidence as in our case with the Ferricimab first, let's say, paper that we put the literature heard us and published our work. And I think Dr. Hashim told me about the cool story about the company representative that met with him, and he was impressed with and he said they were showing the paper all over their meetings. That was, let's say, an evidence of how they can hear from you when you done your homework and we done our homework and you can do your homework also. So, lastly, for the key takeaways and recommendations, the need for transparency about the adverse event, the purpose and value of the MAUDE database that we learned, the reporting requirements for stakeholders, device malfunctions. Let's say we showed the examples, our experience, and how we leverage our search and our data. At the end of the day, I hope everyone takes action. When you do something, when you are concerned, do something. Help serve as a watch, an advocate, submitting reports or encouraging others in the field to do so. When you know the information, you can change, you can observe. When you know something, you can act based on it. You can search for the word and use them. Do not give up easily when you run into problems, as we mentioned, the problems that we had, and you can deal with the problems the way that we dealt with it in the first place. You can combine your findings and you can show it to the world. And as a last remark, positive impact, you can help to make purchasing decisions if you are in a hospital or let's say in a private practice. You can develop policies, let's say, for the devices and for medical decision making for patient and support communication with manufacturer and regulatory agencies and drive changes in standard guidelines and institutional policies if you do your homework. And for last, I will put this, let's say, presentation out for everyone that need it and for the resources with the papers that we published, so you can use it. And thank you, Dr. Hashim, for having me today. It was a pleasure. It was a really pleasure, let's say. Looking forward, let's say, to more endeavors together, and the
Thank
mic is yours.
thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, so much. Actually, we reached the 90 minutes, 1 hour and a half. I would like to thank you about this marvelous, exceptional efforts, and I hope that this lecture will be foundational basis for any patient, for any researcher, anyone in the medical field who want to use the manufacturer and user facility device experience database or MAUDE database. And thank you
I
all.
just want to add something really quick. It is just for the copyrights about the Healthcare Sterile Processing Association. It's most of them. We use some of their slides, and we talked about from their content. We will put the links for them, and anyone that wants to check the original sources, it's more than good because let's say the recognition should be yours also,
Exactly.
theirs also, because they done the work and we used it. So thank you, Dr. Hashim,
Exactly, Dr.
and
Ibrahim. Thank you so much
I think
for your loyalty, and we will put their link and also video description. Thank you all. We need to finish the webinar. Thank you so much.
thank you, Dr. Hashim.